get into your group in a little more detail, but as a whole, the National Hockey League is really having difficulty finding traction. All 32 teams, with the exception maybe of Colorado. Is there anything that stands out to you as to why that is?
Well, I think a lot, like from our perspective, we see a lot of these teams that are playing really well early in the season, and they've had about 5 months to ramp up and get ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as if it's their playoffs. And, I think that has a little bit to do with it. I know that the Edmonton Oilers have always been, or not always, but typically last few years have got off to slow starts and have kind of worked into finding their game. But every team's different. Teams that are having success, I think there's a lot of parity right now, especially, the salary cap has just gone up. I think there's going to be less parity in 3 or 4 years from now, just because of a lot of teams I don't think are going to be able to spend to the max. And right now, everyone's pretty close to that. So I think right now is probably as close as any time for like the competition of teams.
Are you feeling or seeing anything of your hockey club playing late into June for the last 2 years?
It'd be an easy excuse to say, yes, we're worn down. We're not that excited to play these games. It'd be very easy cop out. But I think it's more complicated than that. I think there is a little bit of truth to that. But I think there's other issues or other things that just we're not playing as good as we should be right now.
How do you? I mean, you look at your record. You're right. The last 3 years, this is actually your best record, I think, in the last 3 seasons to start a season.
It is.
But I don't recall having seen this many blown leads. What do you see in the blown leads that gives you concern, other than the fact that you're leaving points on the board?
We've unfortunately we've had just 2 on our last road trip to St. Louis and Dallas, where we had 2 goal leads against Dallas, and just a lot of just mistakes. One, maybe not being able to put teams away. I think there's been multiple reasons why we haven't closed out games. There's been opportunities. I know in New York Islanders, we had a game. I believe it was Detroit after. But there's 2 games close together when we were on a road trip that we could have closed teams out the power play. And whether we didn't score that power play goal or we gave up a shorthanded goal, I think happened a couple of times. Other times, there's been turnovers. There's been missed assignments. It's not just one thing. So I guess it's just, I think a lot of it is numerous things. Put my finger on it, just maybe attention, staying engaged for a full 60 minutes. Just, we have little lapses and it's costing us.
Didn't realize 7 new forwards. I knew there was a few, but when you put it into perspective of half your forward group, that's extreme. Do you have to handle that any differently than you normally would coming into a season? Do you have to be more patient, factor that into yourself?
Yeah, patient, finding out these players. There's a lot of players that don't know. They just came to our organization. Tomaszek being one of them, Howard, Manjapani, Roslovic, numerous guys that, like I said, know of them a little bit, watching them from other teams, knowing their identity, knowing how what kind of caliber of NHL player they are. But then you have some rookies who are coming up playing their first NHL game for us, and kind of find out like how good they are, one of them, but also who's going to complement them, or who are they going to complement? What kind of role are they going to play in? So early on in our season, our first 10, maybe 12 games, we had a lot of line shuffling. Last 3 or 4, it's been very consistent in what we've had. So hopefully we've got a good pulse on our team who our players are, and hopefully we can run a little more consistency, and they can build some chemistry.
This won't be the only time you've heard this, but we had Mark Messier on the show on Monday, and he jumped at the opportunity to say he'd love to play Leon and Connor together all the time. I've joked about it over the years that for every coach, putting Connor and Leon together is kind of like a drug. every time you need a fix, you put them together. What's the challenge of putting them together? What's the challenge of separating them?
Well, when they're together, for me, it's a lot easier to run my bench, which sounds ironic, but it's a lot easier running my bench because of the amount of minutes that they each play. And when they're on separate lines, they are at 21 to 24 minutes a night. That's kind of what they are. So then you've got two of those guys playing those type of minutes. It doesn't leave much for lines 3 and 4. And also the guys that are playing with them, their regular line mates, they're probably not accustomed or fit to play that many minutes when they're separated. So when they're together, it just makes it much more easier. And also the other guys can play more to their identity. Whether it's a checking role or shut down or more physical, it's human nature. Players change how they play when they play with those guys because of, how good they are, and they want to get them the puck, and they always want to make the right plays. So it's, there's pros and cons. Our intentions were that they were going to play together at the beginning of the year, build some momentum. We were sure that was one line that was going to be dominant for us, and then we were going to work everything out from there. In the way we started playing, we didn't get off to the start that we wanted, and just didn't feel like it was what it should have been. And we made some changes. So there's certainly going to be times that we put those two together. You look at around the league, most teams have their best players playing together. It's great having a number one centerman and a number two centerman like Leon and Connor. But you look around the league, all the star players pretty much play with other star players. So having those two makes a lot of sense, having those two play together.
But you even you've had them killing penalties, which when you got there, you actually made a conscious effort not to have them kill penalties.
They did. Yeah. And, we're trying to balance what's best for our team. They have been phenomenal on the penalty kill. Our stats say those two are our best penalty killers. And now with them having the extra responsibilities and the extra ice time on killing penalties, you have to weigh in. Our 5-on-5 game isn't as strong because they're spending some more time on the ice killing. So that takes away less time that they're playing 5-on-5. Special teams are so important. But as a team, we're trying to figure out what's the best balance.